I want to remind all members that every member has a right to ask whatever question they want in relation to this issue, even if you don't like the question that's being asked. So with that being said, Ms. Khalid, on what?
On exactly what you're saying. I just want to add something, if that's okay.
Well, I don't think there's a need to add something. I think I've been pretty clear.
Chair, I just want to reinforce Standing Order 18 to say that, yes, absolutely, everybody has the right to ask the questions that they're entitled to, but they must do so respectfully and refuse from calling people names, etc. And if there is respectful discussion, then I won't need to step in to make sure that disrespect is.
Well, right. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Khalid, for that.
You can already see the chirping, Chair. I'm just putting it out there. I would appreciate if you would be proactive.
I will conduct the meeting in the manner in which I think it needs to go. Okay. Thank you for that, Mr. Boissonnault. You have.
With the benefit of hindsight, I would not have gone into business with Mr. Anderson. And while it has had no impact whatsoever on my duties as a minister, and while I have always followed my ethical obligations, it is clear in hindsight that this is not an individual whose actions and choices I would want reflecting on me.
Mr. Barrett, go ahead for 6 minutes, please.
Mr. Boissonnault, who's Randy?
Mr. Barrett, could you clarify your question?
There are a series of text messages from your discredited business partner, Mr. Anderson. Those messages refer to Randy. That's you, right?
It is not. And in fact, as I indicated in my opening statement, I've turned over my phone records to the Ethics Commissioner and now to this committee. And as you will see, they show none of the text messages that have been reported on by Global News. The messages that I turned over were across all platforms, Mr. Barrett, across all the telephones that I have. And the Commissioner of Ethics has come to the conclusion that I am not that Randy.
Where were you on September the 6th?
So let's walk through a timeline which I think will be helpful.
You have the same amount of time to answer
it's up to the chair to decide.
That
Chair,
I asked.
how are you managing time? Do I get to do fulsome answers?
Similarly to what how we managed it last time, the time that the question is asked is the time you will have to respond. Mr. Barrett asked you where you were on September 6th. Answer the question.
2022.
I was in Edmonton and I traveled to Vancouver in the morning.
Were you at the Liberal Cabinet retreat?
I arrived in the morning, Vancouver time. The Cabinet retreat started in the evening of September 6th.
Okay. And you spoke on the phone that day to your business partner, Stephen Anderson, correct?
Mr. Chair, I have a timeline that I would like to share with this committee that will answer Mr. Barrett's question fully. There was a one-minute phone call
it's a yes
that
or no
followed
question.
a text that I received from Pure Relator asking for an account to be settled. I texted Mr. Anderson. He called me back. We had a one-minute phone call about this issue, and then I sent the text to him. I didn't.
So you called and texted Mr. Anderson that day, yes or no?
I did not call him. He called me.
Okay.
I texted him to let him know
you
that I had an account.
spoke to him on the telephone that day?
Go ahead, Mr. Barrett.
Okay. So we've established that you spoke to him on the phone and you exchanged text messages with him on the date of September 6th. So I want to refer you to a statement from your staff in regard to this matter that said that it wouldn't have been possible on the 8th of September because you were at a cabinet retreat in Vancouver and had no access to any electronic devices on the 8th. But you were also at a cabinet retreat on the 6th of September of 2022. And of course you had access to your devices that day, as you did on the 8th. Is that not true?
That is not true. During the 7th and 8th, during cabinet meetings during the day, our devices are locked up in lockboxes. On the 6th, there were no cabinet meetings during the day. And I can tell you the time, Mr. Barrett. The time that I got the voicemail to transcription was 11:28 a.m.
On the 6th?
The conversation with Mr. Anderson took place at 11:29 and lasted for 1 minute.
Please.
On the 6th and the 8th, did you have access to electronic devices during the day at all?
On the 7th or the 8th?
On the 6th or the 8th, did you at any time have access to your electronic devices, yes or no?
I had access to my electronic devices when I was not in confidential cabinet meetings, yes.
So you're in Vancouver on the phone with your discredited business partner, Stephen Anderson. We have text messages from Mr. Anderson to a client that your company ripped off. And those text messages say, I have Randy and them I need to update. Asking, as West Coast is closing in 7 minutes, you were on the West Coast, and Randy is in Vancouver. Well, you're Randy that was on the West Coast in Vancouver. Isn't that right?
So, Mr. Barrett, let me refer you to the Commissioner of Ethics letter from June 25th, when he stated very clearly, other than the name Randy being used in text messages from Mr. Anderson to Malvina Gowie, messages with according to the published excerpts were neither addressed nor copied to you. I do not have any information before me to support the allegation that you were involved in managing or operating GHI.
So you expect Canadians to believe that the Randy referred to in these texts 9 times is anyone else but you, that the Randy who is in Vancouver and who needs to be updated on the money transfer is anyone else but you, and you admit to speaking to your business partner on the phone. Why don't you just admit that you're the Randy that he's talking about?
So the person in question was no longer my business partner. I was simply a shareholder of the company. I had no operational role in that company. And because Purelator was looking to settle an account, they had my number still in their logbook. They reached out to me. They could not contact GHI. I informed Mr. Anderson of that fact. He called me. I informed him that I would send him the text, which I did, and the conversation ended there.
So we
and
have
the texts are with the Commissioner and with this committee.
After you claim to have been done being involved in the operations of this business, you're expecting us to believe that you are dealing with your business partner on accounts payable, but you're not dealing with him on accounts receivable. That, of course, is far too incredible for anyone to believe. Have you ever been given money from Mr. Anderson since 2021 to either from his personal account, from his personal bank accounts, or from any bank accounts of people that he is connected with? Because, Minister, I've got to say, where there's smoke, there's fire.
No, Mr. Barrett, you're simply mistaken. Purelator reached out to me because they had my number on an old logbook.
Received the money. The question is about the money. Have you received
You had
money?
several questions in your statement, and you had a long time. So am I able to answer with the time that he used, Mr. Chair?
I'm going to give you a couple of extra seconds. Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. So, look, I was very clear that I earn no income from GHI after I stopped working for the company when I was elected. There was one end of a wrap-up for 2021 payment that came to me to wrap up the 2021 business, but those monies came from GHI.
Thank you. Ms. Shanahan, go ahead. And I'm going to go to Mr. Cooper for 5. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Minister Boissonnault, when you last appeared before this committee had text messages referencing a Randy from September 8th. You said the Randy referenced in those text messages was not you, and your office even put out a statement saying that you were in Vancouver and had no access to electronic devices, and that you had made no phone calls during the time frame in question on September 8th. Since you appeared before a committee, we now have a new tranche of text messages from September 6th that reference Randy in Vancouver. You, Randy, through you, Mr. Chair, were in Vancouver, and now you tell the committee that you did talk to Anderson. You did text Anderson. You didn't say that before. You left this committee with the impression that you had no communications with Anderson, and now you say that? I would submit, Mr. Boissonnault, through you, Mr. Chair, that that is a material omission. It is a material misrepresentation. Why didn't you tell the full truth last time you appeared before the committee? Why are we only finding out about this now? Is it because you need a new cover story?
Minister?
I reject the ending of your question, Mr. Cooper, emphatically. Look, the testimony that I gave this committee when I was last here was about September 8th, and then after summer testimony, I proactively provided my text messages to the Commissioner of Ethics. And Mr. Cooper, I don't have data in my phone that indicates who I texted over 2 years ago. Mr. Chair, I get more time.
You had a choice.
I do believe I get more time, Mr.
You had a choice to come to this committee and be forthcoming.
Hang on, Mr. Cooper. I'm going to give you a couple more seconds to respond. Members do have the right to reclaim their time as well, and I'm trying to be as fair as I can. Minister, please go ahead.
So, Mr. Cooper, in the morning of September 6th, as I indicated, I got a text message from Purelator. I indicated that to Mr. Anderson. He called me. We had a 1-minute phone call.
You had a choice.
I sent him the
to
text.
Point of
disclose
order,
that
Mr.
to
Chair.
committee,
Mr. Cooper.
and you didn't do so.
I'm going to Mr. Cooper. Go ahead, Mr.
But I
You
have a
didn't
point of
do
order,
so.
Mr. Chair.
Very conveniently.
Hang on. Point of order, Mr. Fisher.
As Mr. Green had recommended, Standing Order 16-2, interrupting the witness.
Okay, I listened to Mr. Green's questioning, and there were several times where he did reclaim his time in advance of the minister responding. And so I'm going to ask that Mr. Cooper, we give ample time for the question. I know you had a long preamble. The question was there. You have the floor, sir. Go ahead, ask your question.
Mr. Chair, the minister had a choice to come here and be forthcoming. He didn't do so. He misrepresented this committee by omission. And I've got to ask you, you said you had nothing to do with the operations of GHI, and now you admit, in fact, you did. The paying of a bill, that is an operational matter. If you had nothing to do with GHI, why wouldn't you simply pick up the phone, call Purelator, tell them that you have nothing to do with the operations of the business, and for them to call Anderson? Why didn't you do that?
Minister?
That is a really great question, and the answer is I did 3 times. And it was a collections group of Purelator that I never contacted that still somehow had my information from their database. So, Mr. Cooper,
You could have at
Mr.
very,
Cooper, let me finish.
Mr. Boissonnault, why didn't you, at the very least, okay, just text him, say, contact Purelator. Why did you then pick up the phone? Isn't the reason you picked up the phone because you wanted to talk about the $500,000 shakedown? That's why you called Anderson, isn't
No,
it?
Minister, go ahead, please.
Not at all. That is simply false, Mr. Cooper. And as I've indicated before, I have nothing to do with the Gowie Group. I have nothing to do with all of those deals with Mr. Anderson took place after I was an operational member of this company. And I did text Mr. Anderson. He responded to me by telephone. I indicated to him that this bill was there and he should take care of it because I didn't want further
go ahead.
text messages
Minister
from Purelator.
Boissonnault, no one believes you. And after you materially misled this committee by leaving out a material fact, you've lost any benefit of the doubt. 9, you have yet to explain how there are 9 text messages referencing Randy when the only Randy at GHI ever was you. You had a 50% interest. You have a text message placing you in Vancouver. You were in Vancouver. You've now admitted that on that very day you spoke and texted with none other than Anderson, which you weren't forthcoming about until you had now no choice because you wanted to cover your butt. And so, very simply, Minister Boissonnault, do you think Canadians are stupid? Everyone knows it's you. The Randy in the text messages, the Randy in the $500,000 shakedown is you, and you, sir, have lacked the character and judgment to serve in cabinet. If you had any integrity,
Point of order.
you would
Thank you,
resign.
Mr. Cooper.
Point of order.
Okay, thank you. Minister Boissonnault, I'm going to give you some time to respond quickly, if you don't mind.
Sure, I will go quickly.
As quick as
Mr.
possible,
Cooper,
please.
if the allegations that you just threw at me were true, the Ethics Commissioner would have seen in an exhaustive evaluation of all the text messages on all of the telephones that I have on all platforms that those text messages existed. They do not. I am not the Randy in question. The Ethics
you.
Commissioner has said so, and he considers
No
this
one
matter
believes
closed.
you.
Thank you, thank you. 5 minutes, Mr. Barrett. Go ahead, please, sir.
I have an official document from the Government of Alberta dated March 28th, 2020. It's 2 days before you incorporated Global Health Imports officially entering into business with Stephen Anderson. It shows Stephen Anderson listed 7 vehicles as collateral, 5 2019 Land Rovers and 2 2019 Porsches, totaling about $1 million. Yes or no, did you know about this?
Not.
So you were unaware that your business partner posted 7 high-end luxury vehicles as collateral. That's your story?
I didn't review that as part of the filings of the company. It was his decision to put collateral. I didn't have any collateral up in my particular.
Are you currently driving any of the Land Rovers or Porsches?
I am not.
Okay, well, I'm quite sure that no one believes you, other Randy. Mr. Chair, Mr. Brock.
Okay, Mr. Barrett, I'm gonna
Standing Order
suggest,
18,
I'm gonna suggest that that was not appropriate. I'm gonna go to Mr. Barrett, thank you. Or Mr. Brock, go ahead.
Minister, despite your best efforts, this story is not going away anytime soon. The cloud of suspicion will hang over you until the next election, after which time you'll be looking for a new job. Let's take a look at the facts. Galway Group knew of only one Randy, and that Randy was a minister of the Canadian government. That's yourself. At all material times prior to your election, you were in a 50-50 partnership with Anderson. During your time with the company with Mr. Anderson, you in fact were the only person named Randy. Mr. Anderson, who you're now deeply disappointed about, although you didn't say that when you first testified, blatantly lied to the committee about lying to Canadians and lying to the press that there was some other Randy. He also promised this committee to provide us with details as to who the other Randy is. And surprise, surprise, Minister, he couldn't, because by doing so, he would identify yourself. Then we now find out on September the 6th, you're in a text communication with Anderson, you're in a phone call with Anderson, despite you assuring us at committee the first time that you've had no communication with Mr. Anderson. Highly, highly suspicious, Mr. Boissonnault. And furthermore, you know full well that this is indeed an operational issue that is banned by the ethics laws for any minister to engage in a management capacity or an operational capacity. You could have had a staffer reach out to Anderson. You could have simply told the courier company, I got nothing to do with the company, deal with Anderson, go pound salt, not my responsibility. You chose to take matters into your own hands to deal directly with Mr. Anderson. Those are the uncontroverted facts. Now, you're also relying upon the fact that you exercised your due diligence with this committee and your due diligence with the Ethics Commissioner. I asked you specifically to provide us with details, all your text messages on all your devices. You failed to do that, Minister. You gave this committee only one set of records pertaining to one device. I was led to believe you told the Ethics Commissioner you had 2 devices. Again, the Ethics Commissioner is not an investigator. They don't have investigative powers like law enforcement. They can't obtain production orders on service providers to verify what you are saying. So the Ethics Commissioner has to take it on good faith that you're being honest. I've got some serious reservations about your honesty, as do Canadians. So, will you provide this committee with all text records on all your devices? And tell us how many devices you had in your possession in the fall of 2022.
Mr. Chair, will you give me 2.5 minutes to respond?
We have to
There's
move
only
on.
one question.
I think it was a very simple question. Mr. Brock was
It was
commenting.
a 2.5-minute question.
I
There was a
realize
lot
that,
there.
but it was a very simple question. I'm going to ask you to answer the question, and then I'm going to go to Mr. Housefather.
Mr. Brock, the information that you cited in your monologue was reviewed by the Ethics Commissioner. I'm not the Randy in question. It is not me. It's not possible for it to be me. That is in the Commissioner's letter of September 12th. He considers this matter closed. And look, I'm at the committee's disposal, and I provided the committee with information that it required of me.
Minister, will you provide us
Brock?
with full information?
That's time then. If that's
Will
the
you
case.
provide us with, what are you hiding, Minister?
So, just relax.
What are you
So,
hiding?
Minister,
I've never seen you do that to anyone else.
no, because when I get you in my ear over here and I'm trying to listen to what's going on, then I can't focus on the questioning, Ms. Khalid, okay? So Minister, I'm going to ask you, on behalf of Mr. Brock, you've been asked a very specific question about the devices. Are there any other devices that you can provide to the committee, sir?
No, Mr. Chair, because I provided all text messages across all devices for the dates in question, across all platforms, as asked by the committee.
Mr. Housefather, for